Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be recording with one of the decks that has kind of found a spot in the rapidly narrowing modern metagame in the face of Eldrazi and Death Shadow. So in testing for Grand Prix Vegas with Shadow, I noted one of the best cards against my deck was Liliana the Veil. I also noted that it was great against Eldrazi to the point that I was putting Liliana Veil in my sideboard. Also, Shadow can't ever beat Lingering Souls. So I kind of made the statement that maybe it's time to go back to some white-black tokens, and I think this is just a better version of that deck, and this is white-black Pox. So you have all the good cards from white-black tokens. You got Liliana, Lingering Souls, Thoughtseize, Inquisition, Spot Removal and Fatal Push, and then some of the bigger Planeswalkers, Gideon and Sorin. And then you have the this kind of disruptive package that really hits decks like Eldrazi hard in Smallpox. So, those unfamiliar with Smallpox hits each player sacks a creature, all his land, discards a card, loses a life. But you're breaking the symmetry of it because you don't really have creatures that you're sacrificing. So alone, if you hit a creature with that, that's just 3 for 3 card parity. Really just attrition advantage. Your whole deck is based around running your opponent out of stuff. But it's pretty easy to be discarding blanks, discarding a Bloodghast, sacrificing Flagstones of Troycare, discarding a Lingering Souls, just all sorts of ways to break the card parity on Smallpox. And then you have Collective Brutality kind of at the other half of the equation against decks that are more combo-y, where discard matters. Another way to put Bloodghast in your graveyard, another way to utilize extra copies of Urborg. So you just got a lot of very good disruptive tools. You don't necessarily kill the fastest, but your opponent is going to get run out of stuff pretty quickly, and I guess eventually Gideon will kill them. There's never to returns in this list. So the lists have been fluctuating between 1 and 2. I went with 2 because I understand what Anguish Unmaking is trying to do, but at the same time, I'm not too concerned about it, and I'm more concerned about losing life to Anguish Unmaking in my already life total. It's a bit punishing to my life total of Thoughtseize and Smallpox and Anguish Unmaking in my deck. I'd rather just not lose that way, even though I've opted to play Sorin Solemn Visitor. This is a card, so the list I reference, there was a couple different ones. The ones I distinctly remember were UL42, who's a DC area player, and Jabberwocky, who is not Ian Duke, sorry, that's Reed Duke's, that's the other Reed Duke relative. It's Logan Nettles, who I believe is Reed Duke's cousin, from what I remember. But Sorin Solemn Visitor, as a way to regain some of the life that you're costing yourself. I also just really like this card and want to get a chance to play with it. For some reason, I may have good memories of casting this card. So, moving to the sideboard real fast, we'll get to the lands in a second. You're going to notice the white-black sideboard is super heavy on like hard-hitting hate cards. It's weird because not a lot of them are white, but Rest in Peace, which was in Logan's list, clashes with your Lingering Souls and Bloodghast. So you kind of just want the ley lines. But you don't really want to be messing around with spot answers. Your main deck's all spot answers, and if they aren't good, you need something else that really ends the game. So Fulminators take out lands against Eldrazi. Ley lines are your answer against Dredge, as well as Ensnaring Bridge to hold them off for a significant amount of time. Well, semi-significant until they conflagrate you, but hopefully you have ways to beat that. And then Damnations against creature decks, Stony Silence against Affinity, also Dark Blast against Affinity with some extra utility elsewhere. Just pick off their stuff. A lot of their creatures are 1 toughness and just die to this. It's pretty easy to recur Dark Blast, Damnation some stuff, and wipe up a game that way. So the lands. So the mana base for this deck actually looks really weird when you start looking at it, but it's a lot of intricate pieces coming together. So you really want Flagstones at Troycare with your Smallpox. So you play 4. Great. That means you have to play ways to make your white mana into black mana so you can cast your double black spell. Well, we've got 4 Fetid Heath. That's the easiest way. Then Urborg, which is a little easier, except for sometimes you draw multiples, and that's bad. So you got 3 of those. You're light on the fetch dual part of things, only 3 Marsh Flats, and you have more duals, really. You have 3 duals here, 3 fetches. You're more interested in just having your double colored mana, not the specific A or B piece, the plains of the swamp. Also, the life loss, like I said, is relevant. And then you have Shambling Vent as your way to close out and regain some of that life. Again, in your Gideon Ally of Zendikar Bloodghast deck, your mana is a little strained. You need like black mana on one, and then black on two, but also you got the white, like I said, the white land, you've got white spells. So your mana base is very specifically constructed, so be careful with it if you start tweaking that. And also be careful with what spells you add. Anyways, I'm kind of interested to see how this can do against the field. I feel like it's very easy to show that this deck is going to beat Death Shadow. It's reasonably easy to say that it'll be okay against Eldrazi Tron at the worst. But what about the rest? People are playing other decks, you know, the Death and Taxes deck that I tested with last week. How does this do against that? So we'll see what we get in our random sample of Modern League.